So Kelly Hogan is kind of famous in the carnivore space. She's like carnivore royalty. But for those of you who don't know anything about the carnivore diet, aren't in that space, you've probably never heard of Kelly Hogan. But Kelly is absolutely delightful. I really love her personality. She and I met at Meatstock last year in person. I'm not sure that she even had remembered that well, because it was back in like 2020, maybe part of 2021. In my carnivore journey, I did a couple of months in Kelly's carnivore coaching groups. Yeah, just when I was first learning all about carnivore. So, anyway, I wanted to have her on to talk about mental health and meat. So, kind of what she sees from her personal experience, but also working with lots of people in terms of anxiety, depression, mood, some of the mental health stuff. So that's what we're talking about. And I hope you enjoy this episode as much as I enjoyed talking to Kelly Hogan. Kelly, I'm so excited to have you on the show. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, I know you're famous in the carnivore world, but a lot of people that listen to this show are probably not even familiar with carnivore or who you are. So I thought we could start a little bit of background of zero carb life. Like people will think zero carb, like really zero carb. And I want you to explain to them, yes, zero carb life.
Like, yes, pretty literally. Although, I mean, some people will say, but you eat eggs. I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay, so zero carb doesn't technically mean zero point 0.0 carbs because all food has trace carbs, even meat. But animal products, that's what we stick to. I didn't just come to this because I thought it would be fun to cut out all food groups. I was really sick and very overweight in my 20s, and I was having boils. I had a terrible sugar addiction. I was 260 some pounds.
Mhm.
And I was really struggling with mental anxiety at night. My whole life, when I would go to bed at night, I would just lay awake as a child and imagine all the ways my family was going to die.
Wow.
I mean, truly, I remember just being awake, terrified, and I would just be so scared that many, many nights I would crawl into their room and sleep on the floor. At school, during like quiet time, I would just be so worried all the time that my mom was going to die while I was at school. Just anxiety, anxiety, so much. Not medicated for it, just something I kind of kept quiet and knew that I kind of thought maybe that's how everybody was. Like life is hard, everyone struggles with this. Um, I changed my food because when I was 25 years old, I
Mhm.
went to the doctor for yet another boil. Oh, I was also getting so many cavities. So in a very short amount of time, I had 12 cavities that had to be filled. This was all between age 20 to 25. I was gaining weight rapidly, had all these boils, was having chest pain called costochondritis, inflammation. I was on meds for acne I couldn't get rid of, struggling with anxiety, confidence issues, which I'm sure was partly from just I wasn't the weight I wanted to be. I was falling apart, Dr. Kelly. So I went to my doctor and he was old and told it like it was, and he hurt my feelings and he made me cry, and he said, and thank goodness, and he said, we're going to keep dealing with these boils until either you lose 100 pounds or one of us dies.
Wow.
And I know. A lot of doctors won't just tell you like it is anymore. And I was like, I've tried so hard and I really, really had. I was never one of those big is beautiful and I just want to be this size. I was always like, I would give anything to just feel good because I didn't and look like I wanted to look. And so I told him I've tried. I don't know what else to do. And he said, you are inflamed and it's because of excessive carbohydrate intake. I was like, I don't even know what that means. I couldn't have even told you. I did not know what a carbohydrate was at that point. This was 2004. I had heard of Dr. Atkins. I had not read the book,
Mhm.
but he set me on the path of, and that was the last day I had not just like regular soda. I did switch to diet soda at that point. I wasn't full blown carnivore, but I haven't had a potato not a bite of fruit, nothing. That's 20 years ago. Like I went pretty hardcore that day. I kept in pickles, green beans, and some salads here or there for 5 years. And then 15 years ago, I realized I really feel good if I only eat meat. Is that going to kill me? So I did a Google search and I found out, oh, there are people who literally only eat meat and they aren't dead. That's amazing.
Yeah.
So that's what I switched to. I found this amazing carnivore community and I started eating only meat in 2009 and I have not had one single boil since that doctor's appointment. Not one. No meds for acne anymore. Okay, I've got a little tube of like over the counter Zit cream when one pops up. I mean, come on, I'm still human. It happens. But for the most part, I just feel great. I'm not on any meds anymore. No.
And the anxiety?
Oh my gosh, it's almost too far the other way. My husband, he has known me. We've been together since I was 16.
Yes.
So he remembers what I used to be like. I'm sure it's like, well, this is weird. I have this completely different human that I'm married to now. I am now like, it'll be fine, kids. I'll go to bed at night. Well, I can say this now because my husband is coming back from his work trip tonight. I don't even check the doors a lot of times before I go to bed. Like, I'm too slack almost. I just feel so at ease about the world. I feel I used to worry about trees that were going to fall on my house when it was a nice still evening. Now it'll be windy and James will be like, I've been checking the weather. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Isn't that wild?
That is wild. And what's really wild is that you mentioned like if you have soy sauce or something like it'll like starts
Oh,
to
it
come back.
it comes back. Yes, my mom, she's wonderful. She's supportive of me, but she also does not understand how I can just eat plain meat. So when she makes a pot roast, like there must be something else that goes in it. She'll find some way to, she's much better now, but we're talking it's been 20 years.
Right. Right.
There had to be soy sauce put in it or balsamic vinaigrette or some kind of like always something had to go in the meat.
Mhm.
And I always felt so rude asking like, what did you put in it this time?
Yeah.
But I had to really eventually say, if it has soy at all, I will be up the entire night doubting every life choice I've ever made.
Wow. I mean,
I
isn't that
know.
amazing? I mean, that's
Yes.
just amazing to me that I don't think people understand when they have things that they think are just their mind. It's
Yes.
just in your mind.
Or
It's
your personality.
your
It's just who
person.
I
Oh,
am.
it's just
Yeah.
who you are. Oh, that I thought I was literally, I just thought I was wired to
Yes.
be a little more, anxious, just an
Yep.
anxious disposition. Or,
Yes.
and it's like, literally, you don't have to live like that. Like, that's
Yeah.
not, and it might, for people listening, it might not be just food, right? There could be some other things.
Right.
But
Right.
I really I am shocked at how much food impacts our mood and our thoughts and this rumination that we can get in and this
Yes.
fear. Like literally, you've just got a fear cycling, like fear frequency, and it can ignite it.
Yes. So I had a very nice childhood. It's not like all
Yeah,
of my issues came out of childhood trauma. So there are legit reasons that people
sure.
have mental struggles based on their
Right.
mine, I truly think was my brain was inflamed. And no
Exactly.
matter yeah, and no matter what the reason is, whether it's trauma or genetics or whatever it is,
Yeah.
at least we can give our brains the best chance at success by giving ourselves like
Yeah.
fats and giving ourselves good cholesterol and giving like there's so many and keeping out the soy for me. so so
Right.
many things we can do to give us that leg up.
Right. And I don't think I would I was about, I don't know how far into my carnivore journey when my beloved dog died. And
Oh,
it was sad, it was definitely sad. It was devastating, but it was
yes.
also like I was handling it. Like I
Yes.
felt really stable internally. And then it was also spring break and I don't remember. I think there were blueberries and I might have had, I don't know, some kind of vegetable. And I then started feeling like I can't handle this. Like, I can't handle
Oh,
the loss of this. And it's really interesting when you cut it all out and the inflammation goes down. And it's, again, not just about the food. We can talk about sunshine and all the things, but the food made such a big difference that then when you add something back and you're like, what is going on? Like, I literally can't handle life
yeah.
right now. What is happening?
That old song, "Hello, darkness, my old friend."
Yes, exactly.
That's me with soy sauce.
Right, but you could do, like, some mustard, like,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think yeah,
I actually have quite a bit of, I guess, variety for what some carnivores would consider. So I can drink coffee, no
yes,
mental or physical repercussions that I know of. I can handle dairy at this point. I can handle egg whites. There was a while where I would get some issues from chicken egg whites. I eat lots of eggs now with no issues. Um, Fish, pork, chicken, beef, like all the carnivore things, spices, mustard. Oh, Dr. Ritter, I love Tabasco. I can handle Tabasco. It's like one of the cleanest sauces out there. It's just peppers, vinegar. It's no issues. But there are some things that I've learned that are just like, no.
triggering, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really it's a journey that you have to take on your own. Like, you
Yes.
can get support, and I remember I came to your group coaching early on in my journey because I was like, "Are we sure, Kelly? Like, are we sure this is gonna be okay for us?" Because as a nutritional therapist, I was worried that we actually maybe needed, like, if our microbiome needed
Oh,
some fiber and like that kind of crap. And you were so helpful. Like, the group is helpful,
yeah.
but just you don't, the way you come at these questions and the way that you help people go, look, I don't have all the answer. I'm telling you, I'm 20 years in. I'll tell you the last 15 years, I can tell you what my experience is, and you now have a lot of experience working with other people. But and I can tell you, I think how I feel, and this is was my thing, how I feel is more important to me right now. And I
Yeah.
don't know if at some point we all might look back and go, I don't know, because we feel so good now.
Yes. So, right, when somebody questions, have you thought about the this or that, something way down the road?
Yeah.
I'm thinking I wouldn't have traded the past 20 years of feeling good, not being up pacing the floor at night, worrying about my own demise for anything. I also have looked at research. I truly believe that
Yeah.
humans are meant to eat meat, that it is good for us. Not that we have to eat only meat, everybody. My digestion doesn't tolerate fiber, but I know some people do. And that if they can handle whatever allows a person to live their absolute healthiest, happiest, best life, I think they should do that. And for me, that looks like no fiber and all of the meat and Tabasco.
Okay. I love it. Yeah. And some coffee because you can do
And
coffee.
some coffee. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there will be some people who will say, but that's not carnivore. That's really not my primary concern, frankly. Like it's not, but does it stick to someone's rule book? It's like, well, I cut out coffee for years actually, because first of all, it was a very good little carnivore. You're supposed to, right? So I did. And then I was a very good carnivore that got pregnant.
Yeah,
It's
3 times.
three times as a carnivore, and I breastfed forever. So it was a total of 5 years spread out over the three kids. So when you combine my time just cutting it out because plus pregnancy and back to back breastfeeding, it was a long time without coffee. When I added it back, nothing got worse. I was like, so maybe I'm just a carnivore that drinks coffee.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
done.
Yeah, yeah, easy. That's yeah, and are you were a teacher for a long time and then you've transitioned out of teaching,
Right.
right?
Well, kind of. So I taught public school for 20 years,
Right.
and now I'm not teaching public school, but I teach classes online about health and carnivore. So I
Yeah,
still teach, just not in school.
right. No, I love it. Yeah, that's but I mean, you were like 3 kids, working as a teacher, and figuring this stuff out, and you made it work. Because I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, if you're home all the time, you can figure it out." Or if it
Oh, I was
right.
not home. ever. It was busy. Yeah, you're right. So I had to be clocked in, opening car doors by 7 a.m., doing all of the little programs after school, three littles at the time. And I was also doing the YouTube channel at night and coaching by night. Like there was a lot going on. So I kept it really simple and I just ate burger patties every single day for about 10 years. No kidding. 10 years. And it totally worked for me. I felt great. My lab work was good.
Yeah,
So,
that's the thing. It's like you look great. I think it's hard to you're super tall and I'm super short. So it's really fun when we're next to each other. It's like the tall Kelly and the short Kelly. But I mean, you look fantastic. Nobody can argue, right? That clearly like your blood work is great too, which is I'm always like questioning blood work, whether we even need any of that crap.
right.
But your blood work looks good. I've had a coronary calcium score. You've had a coronary calcium score. Mine's 0. Like,
Yes.
like it's so because so many people like when you see a new doctor or whatever, and they're like, "You only eat meat. That's not healthy. It needs to be balanced." But I mean, look at you. You look fantastic. You feel great.
Yes,
You
I
have
do.
energy to be with your kids. You're always outside
Yes.
doing stuff, teaching other people. You have a great attitude. Like,
Thank you.
how could it get better? Like,
I don't know. It is very good, and thank you for all that. I appreciate it. Yeah, I feel like to any of the naysayers, I say, well, bare minimum, I've eaten nothing but meat for 15, basically 20 years, and I'm not dead. So there you go. There's my baseline. I'm not dead yet.
yeah. But you
Anything on top of that, I feel like is just bonus material.
yeah. And how long did that take though for you to really start to feel, especially the mental shifts? Like the boils went away, great. The weight started, was it kind of quick? Did it go slowly? And then the anxiousness and the anxiety at night particularly.
So I kept some plants in my diet for 5 years. So
Oh,
I
that's
was losing weight,
yeah.
inflammation was going down, skin was looking better, but the real mental benefits didn't come until full-blown carnivore 5 years later. I was still having not just anxiety at night, but constant obsession with sugar. Even though I was not having sugar, I was drinking, so I was not eating any sugar. I did not cheat. 5 years I was white knuckling it. Truly. I mean, I'm a little proud of myself for that, but I was having all of the sugar free stuff, like obsessed with it. Bizarre amounts of sugar free jello, sugar free breath mints, sugar free candies. So for 5 years, I was not free. It was just like, this is so hard. And for 5 years, my brain, the anxiety was still there.
Got it.
Yeah. Weight loss did come. The first 80 pounds came pretty quickly, like in a year. And then there were very long stalls after that. So at 80 pounds, hit a really long stall. Then I lost another 20, and I stayed there for like 2 years in the 160s,
Mhm.
which I am fairly tall. I'm 5'9". I've been telling people 5'8" and a half, but I went today for one of those super bougie scan things where
Yeah.
they measure like to the point something fit 3 scan or something. I don't remember what it's called. My
Yep.
first one, and they deemed me 5'9" barefoot today. I was like, okay, cool. So I am pretty tall, but and 160s was okay. I just thought, well, that's where I'm gonna stay. And I did for a couple of years. Then I dropped to the 150. So it got real slow after that. But yeah,
Right. Yeah. But I think it's really interesting that I think we should talk more about the food noise and the cravings and addiction and the sweet
yes.
tastes because you dropped all sugar, but you were still and all those artificial sweeteners are neurotoxin. They are
Yes.
neurotoxin. So people with anxiety that don't know that, and it's
Yes.
just like white knuckling it that breaks my heart for you because it's like, okay, I'm
It's
glad
a long 5 years.
that's
A
a long
long
5 years, but also I'm glad you know because you
yeah.
can help so many people
Right.
that are in that place, but for 5 years, God.
Years. And so during that 5 years, like I said, I never cheated with actual sugar. I
Right.
was not having any bread, no potato. Like, I cut out a lot of things, and my headspace did not get much better.
Okay.
It was the last, I don't know if it was just the last of the plants, if it was the sweeteners, I think that was a huge part of it. But, maybe a combination of both.
Probably.
And when I went full-blown carnivore at the end of that 5 years of torture, I also added way more fat. So I think that was incredibly helpful. I didn't know how important the fat was. My doctor said cut out carbs. He
Didn't
didn't
mention to
mention the
increase the
fat.
fat.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's a really big point. And when I studied ketogenic diets for mental health with Dr. Georgia Ede, I remember her telling us that a brain cell, if in a petri dish or whatever, given a choice between glucose and ketone, fat molecule, it will always choose the fat molecule. So
So
all
true.
the right, it's like, well, duh. Because so many people will say, oh, the brain needs glucose. Well, we make the glucose. You
Yes.
make the glucose that you need. The brain, I mean, the body's not dumb. So we don't have to be eating the glucose in our carbohydrates, which all carbohydrates break down to glucose, in case people are listening and they don't know that. Like, it's a carb's a carb's a carb, right?
Yeah.
But the vegetables, like I see this a lot where the inflammation just won't completely go until the veggies are out and the fat is up high enough and the protein is moderate protein, high fat, and then cut all of the carbohydrates completely. And then the inflammation will finally go, whew,
Yeah,
and that
absolutely.
obviously what happened for you.
Yes. Then it was like, oh, I don't need to Google search to find out if this is good. Then I felt it. So part of the reason I was Google searching, is this okay? Is because something wasn't quite right yet. Like,
Yes.
it was way better than 5 years ago,
Yes.
but it wasn't until I made those tweaks that it was like, okay, now we're there.
Yeah, and that's why I'm glad that you do the group coaching because when people they don't have to Google, they can come because who knows what you'll get. But you can actually get the support and ask your questions and all the things that you learned that
Yeah.
over the years that could really help people. And I think so talk to me about some of the tips that you have for that food noise and the sugar addiction, the sweet taste, because it wasn't sugar.
No, that's right. Okay, I made a little list of things that I really think helped, and I'm gonna try to go through them quickly. Is that
Okay,
okay if I cheat
perfect.
a little and look?
A
Okay.
cheat, yay.
A little cheat, but it's all me, I promise. So first of all, if somebody is feeling really desperate right now in this moment, and they might see that as like, but I'm at the end of my rope, I'm hitting rock bottom. Good. Good, because you're not going to change until you actually feel it. And desperation, that's where I was. I was desperate. And that's when people actually do something about it.
True.
Okay, the next thing was my doctor gave me hope that day. He sold me on it. This is one reason why I try to be like super passionate and excited and be like, no, no, you got this. This is going to work. Because our brains need to honestly see this lifeline out there and be like, yes, this is going to work for me. Go for it. He said, I don't want to see you back for a year. I was like, haha, I'm coming all the time for these boils. He's like, no, I don't think I'm going to see you again for a year. Oh, okay. Hope abounds, people. So embrace it. Watch videos of success stories. Flood your brain and tell yourself if it worked for her, if it worked for him, if it worked for them, it could work for me too. Embrace it. Okay, number 3 was ditch the sweet taste. Anything sweet. And for a lot of people, if they can be completely abstinent for 1 week, they'll start to feel the chains release. And it feels impossible. Um, but the next tip will help. Eat enough, especially during the first week or two that you're cutting out sweet tastes. People eat eat a lot of meat. Like way more than you think a human should ever eat. So much because you've cut out carbs. Your brain is screaming because it's having this temper tantrum. I think you should get meats that you absolutely love. If you love ribs, eat truckloads of ribs for 7 days straight. Omelets, chicken wings, pork chops, just like, oh, you might think, well, this is overkill. Good. It would be so full that you can't even think about anything else. All right, clear the house out of junk. Um, not just environmental triggers in your house, but yes, get rid of those too if you can. If it's your spouse's, tell them put it in the trunk of your car for now. I don't need to see it for the next week. I've got to be free from it. But avert your eyes. I have made a point during this, especially the last 15 years. If a commercial comes on, I look away. I mean, as if it's like porn.
Right, right. I got it.
I don't look. If there's a smell that I felt triggered by, like I would remove myself. You might need to avoid the teacher's lounge for a while. You just if some people be like, "Oh, I just want to smell it." No, 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 that's so stupid. Like get get behind me, Satan. I don't want to see it, smell it, think about it. It will get easier, but in the beginning, tough. Okay, anticipatory dopamine. If you do this is number 6. If you
Mhm.
do get triggered by something,
Yeah.
so you're walking through the bakery because you got to get your meat and you smell it and your brain is like, go this way, the bakery, we want go. That's dopamine being released to put you in seeking mode and you think, oh, that's bad. Well, it could be. But if you're in seeking mode and while that reward is there, the dopamine is there, you choose to make yourself do something else. Eat meat, take a walk, pray, um, breath work, something healthy,
Yeah. Step
whatever you
outside, like anything.
anything that is not detrimental to you, your brain will start to associate the reward of dopamine with that behavior.
Yep.
And it reinforces it. So we're transferring our addiction from the sugar and the bakery junk to transferring that addiction to bacon. You're like, yes.
Yes. That's yeah.
Okay. Okay, the next one says have 3 meals per day. I do. I know a lot of people in this space say, oh, mad, too mad. I actually heard a carnivore doctor recently say, no one needs to eat 3 times a day. And I was like, I
I
didn't say it.
do.
I do, but I had a binge eating issue,
Yes.
and binge eating comes from a place of restriction. I restricted, and then you binge. You restrict and you binge. So if you can't stop the binging, just stop the restriction. And then it usually, as long as, so if I tell myself, don't worry, baby, we're going to eat 3 times today, whether you like it or not. And I just make sure I have a breakfast, a lunch, and a dinner. And my brain and body have really come to appreciate that consistency, and it was helped me to stop
And
uh
I'm just gonna
binging.
add right there too, that also sends safety signals on a cellular level. Just so you know, Kelly, that's like super smart for circadian rhythms and for your cells to learn that they are going to get nutrients and they're going to get good nutrients. It's not just like you're eating nutrient dense foods regularly. So your body knows I don't have to worry about that. I can worry about other things, not that.
I feel that to my core. I
Yeah.
love it. And I did too mad for a long time. I
Yeah.
did. And I know some people feel really good doing it, but I think especially in the beginning, like you said, let's let our body know. We're not gonna do that to ourselves anymore. All this
Mhm.
whether we were starved of all food or just nutrients from a
Yeah.
junky diet.
Yeah.
Not anymore. Okay, I love this
Right.
one. So number 8 is move it, baby, because people who walk are more successful at breaking addiction. And
Yeah.
there was a cool study done on drug rehab centers, and there are some drug rehab centers that have an entire physical movement aspect to their
Uh-huh.
recovery, and they are 70% more effective at breaking addiction than those who do not include that. And it can just be take a walk, long walks. Oh, I wish I could remember her name. There's an addiction specialist, Dr. I think it's Johnson. And she said that she calls it LSD, long, slow distances. Go get your LSD, long, slow distances. So I like that. Okay, number 9, I had to redefine what comfort food was to me. I was always used to feeling like, I just want some comfort food. Yes, I have comfort food. It's a big, soft, creamy scrambled bowl of eggs with butter on top. That is comfort food. I used to label it as, mac and cheese. But now it can be a big steak with melty butter and a little crust on the outside with fat. Like that is comfort. But the more we tell ourselves what comfort is, we buy into it. That's toxic junk. It didn't comfort me. That other stuff hurt me in the long run. So redefine comfort food.
Right.
Uh, sorry, go ahead.
Yep, right. I'm
Oh,
agreed. That's it. Yep,
okay.
you got it.
Let's see. Oh, if somebody is struggling with cravings and they've done a lot of these other things, they might want to also look into their overall hydration. Sometimes if we're and electrolytes, if we're not getting the water we need or the potassium, magnesium,
Mhm.
sodium, all of the things we need, then we're sometimes craving, but it's really we need those things and our
Mhm.
body is registering it as sugar. Sugar, like, no, you're just dehydrated. You need some magnesium. Yeah.
That's exactly right. That's huge. I think people miss that. And being dehydrated can increase anxiety. So,
Because we're not safe. You're literally not safe.
that's
Uh,
right.
y- Yeah.
That's right.
Cool. Okay, if somebody starts carnivore and they think I cannot eat burger patties for 10 years, I would say, don't.
Don't.
Literally don't. Like, get some variety. Courtney Luna has a cookbook where you can basically make anything you used to love carnivore.
Mhm.
And she does not include sweeteners in that, so maybe not everything you used to love. It's not going to be sweet because we're not trying to trigger you, but so much variety. And right now, I'm in a space where I can have more variety in my diet. But due to time and ease, it's fine to do straight up burger patties, but there's no prize for making it more boring. Okay, I think we'll probably talk a little more about stress management, but the stress centers of our brain are located right next to the craving centers of our brain. So when we're highly stressed, it can sometimes feel exactly like a food craving. And if we can take care of the stress part, through breath work, the sunshine, grounding, naps, so many things, sleep at night, journaling, then it can make the craving centers of the brain calm down.
Fill out a little bit. Yeah.
Do you know who Joanne Ozig is? She has a podcast called The Road to Carnivore. And she
No.
had an episode, or she says this sometimes, think about the full package of what you're getting in a food. And I think that is another good one is stop before you eat something and see it all the way through. Like, so our addicted brain will want us to just see this moment of pure mouth pleasure and bliss, and that may be true for a quick minute, right? But if you like look forward
Fast forward.
to
Mhm.
the next 3 days of regret, of maybe your pants getting tight or cravings, your steak tastes like garbage. Like if you really see it through, you're like, okay, maybe it's not worth it. So, easier to say no before you ever start.
That's true. And I did something that I learned from you. When I would feel hungry, I
Yeah.
would ask myself, would I eat a hard boiled egg right now?
Yeah.
And if the answer is yes, then I'm actually hungry. If it's like, no, I'm not hungry. I'm bored. I'm stressed. I'm something else. I'm having cravings, whatever it is, but that you're not actually hungry. If you're looking for food
It.
and it's different, people have different things, right? It could be like, would I eat a plain burger patty right now?
Right.
I would always eat a plain burger patty. So that it had to be like something else for me.
Sardines. For some people, it's the sardine test
A lot
because
of
they're
people
like,
eat a
if I
sardine anytime too,
I
so
love them too. It's not even that good of a test for me anymore. Although if I'm not hungry,
yeah,
I they really aren't that appealing.
I know, but that's also, like, I've worked with some people who struggle because 'cause they're not hungry, and they will go without eating for so long that then they can't control as well
Yes.
what they do eat, and that's more people on keto because I don't find that with carnivore, like, you just don't because carnivore sorta takes care of that, but definitely keto folks do.
Well, my little undereaters, I don't tell them to nitpick their hunger signals. I'm like, you need to make sure they're surviving on so little food. So I definitely wouldn't recommend a sardine test to those guys. I'm like, oh, does
That's
a
right.
big fatty ribeye sound good? Eat that. Right? Eat
That's
that.
I'm the same way, and I'm like, "Go ahead and eat
Yes.
before you get to the point where they get where they're like, oh, now I'm not even hungry,' and it just
Right.
keeps going." So I'm the same, but for those of us who have sugar addiction issues, I find that it is helpful to discern between a craving, like, am I hungry or am I having just a craving?
Yeah. True hunger is not picky. And you can just imagine somebody in a country where they're truly hungry,
Yes,
not picky. When you find yourself in front of the fridge going, I don't know, I don't know, what do I want? That's picky. You're not really hungry. You're
yeah.
probably tired and overwhelmed and anxious. You're bored. That's probably it.
Or dehydrated or
Or
one of the other things.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, stressed.
Yeah.
So
So
many
I didn't
things.
mean to interfere, but that's
No,
that
that was
gives
number
me a
17. I was almost there. Is assess true hunger. So I'm glad
there
we
we
got
go.
to it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna go a little quicker. Destroy it. If it is in your presence at home, and I was left alone a few times with like cake, and I was in the early stages. We're talking about tips to break sugar addiction.
Right.
I had to dish soap it. I mean, truly, I couldn't. I didn't have the strength to say no for the next 3 hours till my husband got home. I had the strength to say no for 3 seconds. And that's all I had to do because now it's dead.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because now it's
15.
dead.
It's dead. It cannot be brought back from dish soap. The trash, it could be
Could
brought
be
back.
brought back.
Ask
Yep.
me how I know. All right. Okay. Number
Right.
15. We have to replace our happy brain hormone. So when people
Yeah.
cut out the sugar, suddenly they've got like their endorphins, their dopamine, their oxytocin, their serotonin. They're feeling this horrible slump. So whether it's getting a new hobby, becoming creative, cleaning out a drawer, having some good times with the honey, uh, getting even spicy foods can help increase some of those feel good brain chemicals. I just think people need to look for it in other places because you're not going to get it from sugar. And if that was the only way you got it, life is going to feel very sad for a while. So
Yeah.
make it happier. The idea of this too shall pass. Cravings, the voice of addiction. I have a puppet somewhere around here that I represent my voice of addiction. Will convince us I am going to scream in your ear until you die or you eat that food. That's the feeling.
Yep.
I'm never going away
Yep.
until you eat that food. But that's a lie. It will go away. It
Right.
absolutely will. You just need to know if I can just breathe through it, walk through it, take a moment, this will pass. And every time it comes back, it will be lesser and lesser.
True. That is true. I can vouch for that.
Two more.
Okay.
Number 19, stick to your parameters. Just know what you can and can't handle. Like for me, it took me knowing I can't do soy. I cannot do sweeteners because I was a sugar addict. There are things I know. And then uh, I would never expect other people to go against their parameters. I expect them to have boundaries, and I would respect that. And just know that you are worthy of people respecting that too. And there's nobody's little fifis or feelings that are worth me hurting my own health and going back to that place that I was. There's nobody, not even my mom, that is worth me going, okay, let me have some more soy sauce and be up all night tonight. Like, she loves me. And as long as I can help her understand what it does to me,
Yes.
then she will respect that boundary. And if she doesn't, then it's up to me to respect it enough for both of us.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. And then lastly, and you've already covered this, get support because addiction will also say you are the only one that eats this way. Everybody else can do great while they eat these foods. And first of all, people are not doing great. Take a look around, y'all. They are not doing great. People are on a lot of medications for mental health and physical health. So that lie of everybody else is doing it, when you get in a large group and you see, oh, Dr. Ritter's not eating sugar, Kelly Hogan's not eating sugar, the other 50 people on that screen are eating only meat and feeling good. Okay, it's not just me. And I think that's huge.
It is huge. And it's also the tips that you get are helpful, the camaraderie that you get from getting the support, but also like you got everything's going to be different when you go to different parties and until you learn to set the boundaries.
Yeah.
And everywhere I go, I mean, people have a harder time with the fact that I eat animal based than the fact that I'm a non-drinker. Like they just want me
Yeah.
to have like a little cake or a little this or a little, just a few potato chips or something. I remember I had something and somebody said, "I'm just glad to see you eating something besides steak." And I was like, "How is it bothering you
I
that I
know.
eat steak all the time?"
Yes.
You
Yeah,
know?
I agree. Yeah.
But when you are navigating that by yourself, it can feel very lonely. So
Yeah.
I agree. Get the support. All of that is super helpful. I think the sweet taste, I just want to also say I learned from you, like the toothpaste
Yeah.
and things that you don't think about with you got to just I have boring toothpaste now, which I've learned is actually better for you
Yeah.
in
Oh,
general.
chewables. chewable supplements. Sometimes people will be getting these very sweet tasting supplements, and they'll tell me. I had a lady one time, she said, I have been total carnivore for, it was like 6 months. She said, and the cravings are still there. And I was like, what? I said, for sugar? She said, yes. I said, you have to be getting a sweet taste somewhere because that part of the brain is not going to just keep lighting up like that if you have not had any sweet taste. She said, I'm telling you. So I was like, flavored electrolytes? No. Diet soda? No. Tic Tacs? Breath mints? No. She came back to me about a week later and said, oh my gosh.
It's a supplement.
That night, I realized when I was taking my chewable calcium supplement, she said, frankly, I look forward to it every single day, but it didn't register when you and I were talking. She
Oh
said,
yeah.
I've cut it out, and I literally have not had any of those obsessive thoughts anymore.
Right. And I will tell you, like, the first time I had a stomach ache and I did a chewable Pepto, and I was like, uh-oh, uh,
Uh-oh.
like you're like, but it's just so many things that you don't think about or that you haven't had in a long time or whatever it is that, and I gotta tell you, I was like, oh, this Pepto tastes so good. I hope it does not end up being a
No,
3-day thing where I,
I had to have outpatient surgery several years ago,
yeah,
and afterwards they gave me minty Gas X chewables.
right.
But they said, you might have some gas pains. And I did. It was like all up in my shoulder blades. I was like, oh, this is awful. I'm going to take one. Um,
Yeah.
you have a problem when you become like, I'm looking forward to the 3 hours being up so I can chew a Gas X. Like, I have issues.
I know. I hear it. I'm the same. Where and immediately you're like, "Uh-oh." And
Yeah.
these people want me to have just a little cake. No.
Oh no. That's how I should lead. Once I thought I was getting hooked on Gas X, so maybe pie is a no.
I know even like I was doing BC powders for my migraines at one point, and there was something sweet.
Mm,
I don't even probably, I mean, terrible for you anyway. I needed to quit that.
right,
But
right.
still like little things that you
Yeah.
just,
It
yeah,
does not take much for that pathway to be like, oh, bing. Yeah,
yeah. And some of us, it's just, we have to, it matters more than I think other people. I don't know why food, why we have such sensitivities to the food that we eat and how it can change our mood like that. More people are like that than not, I've found. But, why are there some people that can eat whatever they want and it doesn't seem to affect their mood or the way? I don't know. But
right.
we're not them.
No. And the phrase once an addict, always an addict. I've never liked that because I think, well, I don't eat like an addict anymore. I don't act like a sugar addict, eat like a sugar addict, or look like a sugar addict. But, and you've probably heard of this study. I just heard it recently from Dr. Anna Lemke. It's a rat study, but I think it's really fascinating. So
Yeah.
they took a group of rats, and as they were reaching rat adulthood, they gave them cocaine,
Yes.
and they gave them cocaine every day for 2 weeks.
Yep.
And at first, the rats behaved normally, but by the end of 2 weeks, they were in a frenzy. They weren't mating, sleeping, eating. They weren't doing anything normal. All they wanted was cocaine. By the end of the 2 weeks, they would even get electrical shock to get the cocaine. So they are addicts. Okay. Then they removed the cocaine for years. So the equivalent of an entire adulthood for a human, you know,
Mhm. Right.
a very long time. The rats, of course, it didn't take, but maybe a few weeks for them to return to normal rat behavior again. They no longer acted like addicts. Well, as these rats were approaching old age of rathood, they brought in new rats to the cage, and they had them tagged so everybody knew who was who here. And they, for one day, brought cocaine back. You knew who the old rats were because on day one, their behavior went back as if it was their day 15. Immediately, the old school, those rats were back to frenzied addicts, whereas the new ones still behaved the same because their addiction had not ramped up. Those pathways in the brain, remember, so there's a reason that you and I react different to chewable meds than somebody else because we were addicts, and that pathway is always going to be alive for us. And so we just have to be careful. Like,
Yeah.
we're
And
not
honestly,
subpar.
I love the idea that whoever it was that you were mentioning, I forget on her channel or her podcast talking about look to the future. Like you've got to you really have to. I've gotten to the point where if I want something, which is not very common for me, but if I'm somewhere and I just have to think of what the next 3 days would look like and how bad that would be and how good you can feel.
Yes.
There's no need to do that to yourself.
I
So,
have to I have to respect tomorrow morning Kelly Hogan more than I do this moment Kelly Hogan. Like the one who wants the taste. Like really. And I tell people that tomorrow morning, when you are your tomorrow morning self, look back and with gratitude, be like, I'm so thankful I didn't have that because no one has ever regretted one bite they didn't take. It's the regret is always for what we did give into, but you never wake up and go like, man, I really wish I had eaten that. Nobody,
yeah,
nobody.
right.
Yeah.
That's true. I know some people are probably like, you had 3 kids and you ate carnivore and then the kids carnivore and know they can go to your channel and they can hear all about it, but just a little bit of
Yeah.
your kiddos.
Yes, so they're very animal based.
Yeah.
Um, Fruit is a dessert here. They enjoy fruit, but it's berries, and that's what they have as a dessert. And I wouldn't give them 10 pieces of pie, and I also don't give them like, a bucket of strawberries. It's kind of limited. As far as vegetables, they can have the ones that they want, but like most kids, they are not begging for lots of vegetables. I don't make them eat any vegetables. I literally don't care if they eat them, but
I know. I wish I had not worried about that. It's so relieving.
So I do post a lot of what they eat. My kids' favorite foods, steak. They eat a lot of steak. In fact, they can do it themselves because I have air fryers, and you could just throw in a steak, but they're slow with cutting. They're kids, and I hate cutting up a ton of steak, so I just go buy packs of what they call stir fry meat. It's already sliced up. It's literally just unseasoned beef at my store. It's just cut up. I'm like, wow, pre-cut beef, and for some reason, it's cheaper. Yes. And all they do is dump it in the air fryer for 5 minutes. Well, we season it. And they love that. They are obsessed with salmon planks. My youngest eats ground beef bowls with taco seasoning, cheese, and sour cream a lot.
Yep.
She could probably eat that every single day. They want fried eggs. So sides. We do a meat and two sides, but the sides are usually fish and fried eggs.
Yep.
So,
Or
yeah.
bacon or yeah, like a side of like some fun thing that I get from Courtney Luna or yeah,
Oh, shrimp. They love shrimp with
shrimp.
butter. So a side of shrimp, a side of fried eggs, a side of salmon. Like, right. We
Love
still
it.
do sides.
Yeah, amazing. I love it. I know some people are like trying to wrap their brain around this stuff. I want to talk just quickly about like some of the quantum stuff because when you and I were talking at Meat Stock and then we met after we talked after that, you do a lot outside. You've gotten really into earthing and the sun and all
Yeah.
the things. So I just wanted to touch base on what of the quantum health strategies have you found to be the most helpful along
Okay.
with the carnivore?
Yeah, I don't even know what qualifies really as quantum, but I'll tell you the non-food things that I find
The
helpful.
non-food
Okay.
things, that's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I have a vibration plate that I really enjoy.
Yeah.
For lymphatic drainage. I do lymphatic massage on myself once or twice a week. I have so I work at home a lot on this laptop here, my little trusty buddy. I do a lot of video editing and writing in the handbook and replying to emails. It's a lot of emails. So I have a standing desk with my walking pad underneath, but on top of the standing desk, I have a grounding mat that plugs into the grounding. So my hand is always resting. First of all, my wrist was starting to get like calloused from resting it there. So I got a soft grounding mat. It's
Okay.
nice. I
Perfect.
do sleep with grounding sheets. Some people say, did that make a big difference? Frankly, I was already sleeping like an angel, so I don't know. Some people say it made all the difference in the world, but there wasn't much more I was looking for
Right.
sleep wise.
Right.
But I figure if I'm going to be asleep, I like to multitask, Dr. Ritter.
Um,
It makes me very happy.
yes.
If I go to sleep knowing, I'm also grounded, somehow this makes me so happy. If I'm walking and typing and grounded, yes.
I
I have
love it. Yeah.
I
Layering.
right in front of my treadmill, I have a red light box, so I do that every morning. So I'm walking, typing, grounded, red light in my face. My vibration plate is there. When I do the vibration plate, I also do breath work. I'm a big fan of the alternate nostril breathing. And I'll do that when I get a little bit monkey brain. So what I mean is when I talk breath work and meditation, if I don't have something to guide me through that, then I would just be thinking about to-do lists. And
Got
that's
it.
not very meditative. So I put on like a Christian guided breath work meditation where they'll read a scripture and there's music playing. My eyes are closed and I'm vibrating
Yeah.
and maybe even have the red light on. And so I'm listening to the scripture and I'm doing my alternate nostril breathing. Um, I just like to combine some of those things. And if people think, wow, you're just throwing a lot of money for nothing. Well, I also am a big fan of the actual sun, the actual ground,
Yes.
an actual walk outside. All of those are great, but when it's winter time or, you're just short on time, I can incorporate my work. And people will say, how do you get so many steps? I say, I had 8 hours of work to do today. I could have done it sitting or I could have done it walking. Nobody's going to fuss. Oh, why? How did you get 8 hours of work done? I could have sat and nobody would say a word, but you walk and suddenly people are like, that's a lot of walking. Well, it was either that or a lot of sitting. So I choose to walk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I mean, I think that just it makes I'm a big layer in, you
Yeah.
know, like the breath work outside while earthing, whether I mean, I just and I also biohack everything because it's
Mm.
made a big difference for me. The red light panel made a
Yeah.
huge difference for me. So I'm all about you whatever works for you. And a lot of us have a lot of inflammation from years of damage, and it just
Yes.
takes a lot. And
Yeah.
so you do what you can do. So I appreciate you. Those are all the things.
That's a lot of
That's all the
things. Yeah.
things that
Oh,
are
I also
yes,
mouth tape. I wear the blue blockers at night. Like I'm
there we
just
go.
trying to do things that I don't mind. So there are some things that I do mind. Like I don't want to sit in an ice bath, frankly. I tried it once. It's it is not my thing. I do not like water. I am a cat. I really do not enjoy being in water. I hate being cold. So for me, like, okay, there's a biohack that I am less interested in right now.
I agree, but you try
Yeah.
things and then you
Yeah.
say, "That wasn't for me." And
Right.
that I think is important. You did that with carnivore too, like,
Yes.
trying different things, seeing
Yeah.
you can be inspired by other people's story. Your story is very inspiring, but you know you're on your own journey.
Yes.
So, yeah, so I love that. That's very helpful, and I also think, cold plunging is also very stressful, and if people have a lot of stress, you may not wanna
Yeah.
add more stress. I mean, you gotta pick what you're gonna do and get
Yes.
that and get your rhythm in that way. So I agree 100%.
I think some people think biohacking must be miserable. Like in order for it to be
For it to
effective,
work.
you know what I mean? Like, okay, well, this has to be awful. I must be barefoot in the ice and jumping into the cold plunge and
Yes.
sweating for hours. Biohacking can be, hey, before I fall asleep, I have a really good time with my husband. Right?
Right.
Like, it's human connection. We can look at laughter, watch a comedy together. We're laughing. We can walk up the road in the sunshine together, laughing and talking. Like, biohacking is not code for this is gonna hurt.
Right. That's a good point. And I think a lot of times people think biohacking has to be really expensive too, and that's
Right.
not true.
Yeah.
There are lots of things that we can do that aren't. So, and I think for speaking of expense, like people are like, God, you spend so much money on meat. I'm telling you, I spend less money than I used to
Yeah.
because we're not wasting anything either. Because I would buy vegetables and nobody liked them or would eat them. And so we end up throwing out most of that stuff out. So
Yes. So many slimy bags of spinach before.
I know now I'm like, yeah, that was just a waste. So, and now we
Yeah,
eat every little bite of that steak, and then there's no waste.
I'm definitely not throwing out New York strips. Like, we're eating it. It's all being used. Yeah.
That's true. Is there anything that you are like, "Oh, I really wanted to share that?" Any, like, thoughts, anything we didn't cover?
I heard Dr. Gabor Mate, not a carnivore guy, but a mental health space guy talking. And
Gourmette. Yeah.
yes,
It's
there you
good.
go. And I came on, or he came on and said that there was a study of over 2,000 women, and
Yes.
they looked at these women over the course of 10 years. And they talked to the women at the beginning of this 10-year study to find out if they were happily married or married. And of all the women that said they were unhappily married, they asked the question of, do you express that to someone? Does anyone know this? And there were some women who were like, no, everybody assumes that we're in a happy marriage. I don't talk about it. I'm only answering the question here, but okay. So they're putting up a front. And then other women said, I'm unhappily married, but yes, I express it to him, to everybody that'll
Anybody
listen,
who'll
right?
listen. Yeah, okay.
Yes. At the end of 10 years, they were mostly interested in those two groups, not the happily married people. Although nobody at the beginning knew, who was really being looked at, but that was it. The women who said, I'm unhappily married and do not express it, died 4 times more by the end of the 10 years
Yes.
than those who do express it. So when we talk about mental health, give yourself the best chance by keeping out toxins, get that fat, eat enough meat, get out the sugar and all that stuff. But I think we have to also say, if you're bottling things up every day and you have no way to be your true authentic self to the world, and I don't mean just go around complaining about your marriage all the time, just being authentic, talking, whether that's to your creator, to your journal, to your friend, to that husband who's driving you crazy, but you speak who you really are. I think that's really important.
It is. It's actually crucial. And honestly, that's one of the things I see. People will come to me and they're like, I'm doing all the things. I'm
Yes.
getting outside. I'm eating the meat. I'm doing, and they're still not feeling great. And I'm like, it's
Yes.
almost always repressed emotional stuff.
Yes.
It's just if you're bottling up, if you're not able to be who you really are, authentic, in any way, but it's also particularly around anger and women that suppress anger. I've been thinking about this a lot, so it's interesting that you brought it up because a lot of people will talk about Gabor will talk a lot about how that will kill us. That creates more women will end up with cancer and all kinds of problems and they die sooner, 4 times more than people who are able to express anger. Well, express how? Well, you just mentioned it. Like, tell somebody, tell the
Right.
journal, tell your creator, tell a therapist, like,
Yeah.
get it out of you. It really is about just getting it out, is part of it. It doesn't have to be solved to get it out. So,
I love
I'm
that.
glad you brought it up because it's
Well,
huge.
I just heard it today and I thought, I think I was meant to hear that before this conversation. So when you said, is there anything else? Yes, that was it.
I think it's important. And I think that once the inflammation starts to go down and you're implementing a better lifestyle, because you do have more confidence when you look better, you feel better, you're out there, you have more confidence. And if you're still not feeling great, it's almost always emotional, or I would say psycho, emotional, spiritual.
Right. Yeah. I think it's huge too. And I've also heard that it's really related to thyroid function. Trauma, like
Mhm.
trauma and thyroid. I think I heard Dr. Bright say that. So, yeah.
Dr. Bright does say that a lot. And then we could go on and on and
I know
on,
I
Kelly.
could. I would talk for hours, but I
And
think
I
that covers most of it.
most of it. I think it's really amazing. I want people to come check out your YouTube channel
Yeah.
and see because you're so open and it's so helpful that you just tell people what's going on and how your journey has been. So very, very helpful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the chance to come share. Thank you for letting me use my cheat notes.
I love
I
it.
just wanted to cover it. Yeah.
I think it's important to do it that way. You make sure we get through everything. And I think meat for mental health should be a thing. Like
Yes.
that people need to understand because I think so many people think, "Oh, I'm gonna clean up my diet." Like your doctor and originally saying you need to cut out carbs. I mean, most people won't say that to you, first of all, but second of all, I think when people think clean up your diet, they think plants, and
Yes.
that actually did not
Opposite. Yes.
the opposite is true. at least for mental health, but also for a lot of other things. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm glad happy to help get that word out there with you. Clean up your diet means eat more meat, people. That's code for eat more meat.
Code for eat more meat. Yes, I love it. Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thanks for
I
having me.
appreciate you. I always love talking to you.
Same.